Welcome back to all my food warriors. We have a very special episode of Cooking with Coach Joe today. This is our 25th episode, and for that reason, we are making a pasta alla matriciana, one of my absolute favorite pasta dishes. So simple, but so good. Pasta alla matriciana is from the region of Rome, so Rome and Lazio, the surrounding area, from the town of Amatrice, one of the 4 or 5 most popular pasta recipes from that region. Typically when we think of Rome, we think pasta alla carbonara, we think cacio e pepe, we think pasta alla gricia, and we think pasta alla matriciana. From the town of Amatrice, an absolutely phenomenal recipe, so simple, so good. Literally only a handful of ingredients, punches well above its weight in terms of flavor, but very simple to make. Literally anyone can make this on any weeknight. It's absolutely a stellar dish to add to the repertoire. In fact, it's so quick, the sauce is so quick to come together. I've already got my water on the burner heating up because literally the sauce takes less time than the water does take to boil. And then we want to finish cooking the pasta, as we do with all of our pastas, in the sauce, so that the starch from the noodles thickens up the sauce a little bit, but also the sauce can start to cook into the noodles. And what we get is an absolutely fantastic end product. Literally the ingredients that we have that go into this dish classically, we have either pancetta or guanciale. Pancetta is the belly of the pig that's salt cured and air dried, absolutely authentic. Guanciale is essentially the jowl or the cheek of the pig that again is salt cured and air dried. You can get those at any really good delis. Either one of those, classically traditional. In addition to that, we have tomatoes that are ripe and in season. So in the summer months when tomatoes are plentiful, by all means, those can be used. When tomatoes are not quite in season, I find that the canned peeled plum tomatoes of the Roma or San Marzano variety work really well for this dish as well. On top of that, we have a little bit of white wine, and I like to add a couple of other ingredients outside of just salt and pepper. We have a little bit of dry oregano. I have chili pepper, obviously, because Coach Joe likes it a little spicy. And then there's been this big debate about whether or not onions should be put into the dish. Honest, I don't understand these kinds of debates. I like onions. I'm going to put them in. Classically, there's a big debate as to whether or not it's really traditional. Trust me, the Amatriciana, the pasta police is not going to show up at your house, throw you in the wagon, take you to jail. If you like onions, throw them in there. A little bit of garlic doesn't hurt either. So again, these are things that you can customize according to your taste. It's your kitchen. You're the boss. So what we're going to do here, we're going to start by cutting up some of our vegetables. I've got a couple of onions here. Normally I'd be using a couple of medium-sized onions. These are kind of small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these up into kind of a medium dice. Nothing too fancy. This really is the epitome of home cooking. And with that, we do want it a little bit rustic. So nothing too fine, as it is going to cook down into the sauce. There we are. There we are. Literally, this takes minutes to cook, but it's one of those recipes that just absolutely packed with flavor. Because there are so few ingredients, I would suggest use the best that you can find. It really does make a difference. So while I'm cutting this up, I'm just going to turn on my burner here, let my pan heat up, and then I'm going to throw in a little bit of olive oil and my pancetta to crisp up. The pancetta, despite the fact that it's a meat product, I'm not using it as a protein. This is simply to flavor my dish. It gives a beautiful savory note to the dish, and really it's one of those things that you will miss if it's not there. There we are. And our last onion. Again, don't worry about cutting it too fine. This is meant to be rustic. In a restaurant, you pay more for that. So, rustic is a good thing in this case. Italian food, really the heart and soul of Italian cooking is all done in the home. Very rarely would an Italian go out for Italian food. Typically, the food that we grew up with is the food that was made in the home. And so this really is meant to be proper home cooking. Let's get our chili pepper. Just cut off the stem end. And we'll give this just a very, very thin slice. You don't want a big honking piece of chili pepper between your teeth. There we are. And now we will get our garlic. I've got 3 or 4 small cloves here. If you like a little more garlic, throw a little more in. If you don't like garlic, you can just add these to the pan whole and then fish them out later, and the flavor of garlic will be much, much more delicate. We're just going to give these a quick crush. And what we're going to do now is just give them just a very fine slice. All right. Alright, so what we're going to start with now, a little bit of olive oil in the pan, probably 4 or 5 tablespoons of olive oil, and then we'll get our pancetta. This is about, we'll call this about 200 grams of pancetta, and we're just going to fry this up, start to get that fat rendering out. There we are, and all we want to do is let the fat render out and start to crisp this up before we add in our vegetables. There we are. Now the pasta that I'm using today, typically when I make a pasta alla matriciana, I like to make it with a short pasta. So these are farfalle. These are the little bow ties. Use whatever brand of pasta you like. I like a pasta with a high wheat content. Something that's bronze die cut, because it gives the finish that's on the pasta will actually help to retain the sauce a lot better than just something that's just cut out of an aluminum die, so to speak. So we'll give this a quick couple of minutes in our oil. We'll let this crisp up, and I will see you in a couple of minutes. All right, we are back. So our pancetta is getting nice and crispy. It's rendering some of that fat into the olive oil, and what we're going to do now is we're going to throw in all of our vegetables. So we've got our onions, our chili pepper, our garlic. All of that is going right into the oil. Now what I'm doing here, this is almost a double recipe. What I'm using is about, for a family of 4, I would recommend using about 500 grams of good quality pasta. So really getting around 1 pack of pasta. What I'm using today is about 750 grams, because I do want a little bit of leftovers in this recipe, in that, want to have some things available for school lunches and maybe a quick dinner during the week. So we're making a little bit extra. This way we cook once and we eat multiple times when it's convenient. So now the pancetta is a little bit salty. It's important to remember that. We want to take that into consideration when we're salting our dish. So I do want to put a little bit of salt in there, just to start to get some of the moisture leaching out from the onions and the chili pepper and the garlic. I am going to put a little bit of black pepper in there. There we are. And we're just going to give this a quick stir. And all we really want to happen is we want to sweat down all of the onions until they become essentially, kind of opaque and translucent. So we will just give this a little bit of heat. There we go. So now what I'm going to do while this is going, I'm gonna get our tomatoes going now. So what I have here is just a good quality can of plum tomatoes. What I'm going to do is just empty this in a bowl. There we are. want to make sure we get all of that in there. Be careful dumping that out as it can be a little messy. We want to make sure we scrape that out and get all of the goodness into the bowl. There we are. So now if I was making just a regular batch with 500 grams of pasta, this would be enough tomatoes for that. But given that I'm making a slightly larger batch, I'm going to be adding a little bit of passata. What passata is really is just strained tomatoes. You can get it at any good grocery store, any good supermarket, or certainly any good Italian deli. So we'll just give this a bit of a stir. There we are. Now, even though I did wash my hands thoroughly before we started, I'm going to get my hands right in there, so I'm going to give them another wash, as I did touch the outside of the can, and I want to make sure that my hands are absolutely clean. There we are. So now what I'm going to do to this is get my hands right in there and just give it a squeeze. Now don't do this too aggressively because you will be wearing this if you do. So just get your hands in there nice and easy. Make sure you pop those tomatoes. And make sure you work the pulp of those tomatoes through your fingers. Get in there, just give them a squeeze. You want to break those up. And once those hit the heat, they will just melt right into the sauce. There we are. There we are. Your hands are your best tools in the kitchen. Keep them clean and make use of them. There we are. Make sure we give them a wash again. There we are. So we will give our pan a quick stir, and we are almost ready to add in the tomatoes. We don't really want to get any color on our onions. We just want them to soften and bring some sweetness to our sauce. There we are. Check the water. Not quite there yet. There we are. So now to our tomatoes here, we're going to add a little bit of salt. There we are, a couple of pinches of salt. We're going to add a good pinch of pepper. And we're going to add about 1.5 tablespoons, 2 tablespoons of dry oregano. Is this traditional? No, but I like oregano with my tomatoes. I think it's a great combination. So what I'm also going to add to this is just a little bit of passata. This is about 400 grams, or 400 mils rather, of just crushed tomatoes. And what I'm going to do is just rinse this out with a couple of tablespoons of water, just to make sure that I get everything out of that jar. There we are. And everything will go. There we are. Excellent. Put that there. Now I think our pan is ready for our tomatoes. So we will get all of that in there. There we are. Just give this a quick stir. Now what we want to do is add a little bit of wine to this as well, a little bit of dry white wine. So we'll get this mixed up. I have here about a cup of dry white wine. I'm just going to add that to my bowl because literally I don't want to waste a drop of any of this. So we'll give this a quick stir. We'll work it around. Make sure we get all those remnants of tomato off the sides of our bowl, and we will pour that right in. There we are. Now, if we're looking for a type of dry white wine to use in this application, Pinot Grigio works well. You can use a Soave, Orvieto, any one of those three works very, very well. Verdicchio as well, I've used in a pinch. All great wines, great to drink on the table, and certainly great to use in this application. So we're just gonna raise our heat a little bit, and our sauce is essentially done. All we want to do now is just get some heat into this, reduce it down, get it to thicken up, and throw in our pasta, and we are done. We are done. So I'm just going to give this a few minutes on the heat here, stirring occasionally. We're going to let this thicken up, and then I will see you when my water is ready to add in my pasta. And we are back. Our water is just about coming up to the boil. Wanted to take a moment before I threw the pasta in to just remind everyone, please do like and subscribe to the channel if you do find the content particularly useful, and do feel free to share the content with friends and family, as you know what, we put this out there to be shared. It's really, you know, food is what brings people together around the table, so do feel free to share the link to the channel with anyone who may be looking to expand their cooking repertoire. So our water is just coming up to the boil. I've got about 5 liters of water here in this big pot. What I'm going to do is add in about a good 4 tablespoons of salt. We're just going to let that dissolve. And then we are going to throw in our pasta. There we are. Let's let this dissolve. I'm going to... There we are. We'll just put in our pasta. Like I said, this is 750 grams of farfalle pasta. You can, whatever shape you like. This is an application that works particularly well with short pasta. So we're just going to give this a quick stir. We're going to start our timer, and we're going to cover this just to bring it right back up to the boil, and we'll give that a stir occasionally just to keep the pasta from sticking. Now, our sauce, as you can see, is thickening up nicely. I've lowered the heat down to low. Oh, absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to keep this on low for the next few minutes while our pasta's cooking. And then as we add the pasta to the sauce, I'm going to raise the heat a little bit. And we're just going to finish that pasta in the sauce to make sure that this is, really bring everything together. This is going to be one dish by the time we're done. This will easily feed, like I said, 6 to 7 people. So easily enough to feed a crowd. I will see you in about 10 minutes when our pasta's ready, and we'll take it to the plate. We are back. We have just drained our pasta. And I have tasted this already. It's just beautifully al dente, which means there's still that little bit of resistance as you bite through the noodle. It's probably 30 to 45 seconds away from being perfectly cooked. So what we're going to do now is just finish that for the last minute or so directly in our sauce. Our sauce is thickened up beautifully. We're just going to give this a quick taste. Oh, that is fantastic. The alcohol from the wine has evaporated. The sweetness from the tomatoes is coming through. You taste the sweetness from the onions. You taste a little bit of that savoriness from the pancetta. Oh, absolutely stellar. Absolutely stellar. So we will just give this a quick shake and just put all of our pasta, there we are, right into our sauce. One last noodle. Nobody left behind. And we're just going to give this a beautiful mix. Oh, look at that. Look at that. We're going to get this to combine. We're just going to raise the heat a little bit. We're going to let that surface starch from the pasta combine with the sauce and just thicken it up that last little bit. Oh, this is the smell. I wish you could smell this. The smell of this, oh, absolutely phenomenal. So we are just going to give this about another 30 seconds in our sauce. Oh, look at that. And we are then going to bring this right to the plate. Now to serve this, usually serve this in a bowl. The cheese that I use to accompany this, traditionally, pecorino romano. For any pasta that's usually coming out of the region of Rome or Lazio, pecorino romano is the traditional cheese of choice if we wanted to keep it fully traditional. Now I find that pecorino is a little bit saltier than parmigiano, so what I do is I combine half and half parmigiano reggiano and pecorino romano. Now, whenever I'm making pasta, please grate the cheese fresh right off a larger piece, a larger wedge. We can do a lot better than just that color. You know what I'm talking about. That colored canister that tastes like, well, it doesn't taste like cheese, put it that way. So I think we can do a lot better if we're going to go through the trouble of making pasta from scratch with a beautiful sauce. The last thing we should do is garnish it with cheese that is as noble and as fine a product as our dishes. Look at that. We're done. We are done. We're going to shut the heat off. We're going to take our bowl, give this one final mix, and here we are. There we are. I'm telling you this, a bowl of this with a beautiful crusty piece of bread, there is nothing better. There we are. And what we're going to do here is just take our cheese. There we are. Like a nice snowfall. Yeah, one more. Why not? There we are. There we are. Let's get ourselves a fork. Oh. Just that light salty kick of the cheese melts right into the sauce. There are very few dishes out there with so few ingredients that pack this kind of a punch. I really do recommend you try it. You won't be disappointed. I've made this for years. I grew up eating this kind of stuff. Absolutely fantastic. Highly recommended. Like I said, do like and subscribe. If you do try this, do let me know how it came out in the comments below, and I will see you on the next one.